Have you ever heard the term closing costs and thought, wait, what am I paying for? Well, listen, whether you're buying or you're selling, closing costs is definitely a part of each transaction. And today, I'm here to break it down just a little bit so that you can have a better understanding of exactly what closing costs is and what to expect during your transaction. Hi, I'm Latanya Stanley. I'm your favorite Georgia realtor, and today you're here for another episode of Real Talk Real Estate where we are going to be covering closing costs. Come along. What are closing costs? Closing costs are fees and expenses that are due at the very end of a real estate transaction. Now, they're totally separate from your down payment, but they are expenses that are needed in order to transfer ownership legally from one party to another at the very end of a real estate transaction. In a real estate transaction, both buyers and sellers both have a responsibility for closing costs. Each one is a little bit different, but today I'm going to break down each one so that you can know the difference regardless on what side of the transaction that you're on. As a buyer, your closing costs can range between 2 and 5%. That can include loan fees, which include origination, underwriting, and a few other things that will come from your lender. It also can include appraisal, which is used to determine the value of the home, as well as title search and insurance, which is used to make sure that there are no issues with ownership along the way. Last and definitely not least, you also have your escrow fees as well as your prepaids. Your prepaids will include things such as your homeowner's insurance, HOA, and your taxes. Those items are prepaid because you will be paying a portion from the time of closing until the end of the year. Now, in our next part, we're going to be talking about what the seller's responsibility is. As a buyer, one thing that you should know is, as a good agent, we will always negotiate for the seller to cover some or even all of your closing costs. So don't be concerned about that. As a seller, your closing costs may look a little different, starting with title transfer fee. That is the fee that is used to make sure that you transfer ownership of the home to the buyer. That is a responsibility that's definitely covered on the seller side of the transaction. A few additional responsibilities of the seller in reference to closing costs include settlement fees and any outstanding balances, which can include past due taxes, outstanding HOA fees, as well as any repairs that may have been negotiated along the way of contracting. Now, another thing that is a responsibility of the seller is if you agreed to pay any closing costs for the buyer, that is also a part of your closing cost package that will be at the end. And this last one, which is extremely important, definitely real estate agent compensation. This is something that should be discussed between you and your agent prior to listing, but that's very important because you need to be aware that that is a part of your closing cost responsibility. Now, the difference between the two, as you can see, both have a responsibility for closing costs, but there's a big difference. The buyer will bring their down payment and their closing costs to the closing table to cover. The sellers has theirs deducted from their net proceeds. Now, it's very important that your agent prices your home right because you don't want to have to come to the table bringing money. You want to be able to receive money even after you have your closing costs deducted from your proceeds. And that's closing costs. Once all documents are signed, all money is wired, all funds are cleared, you can now exchange keys and ownership is transferred over to you. And you now receive your proceeds from the sale. So closing costs doesn't have to be confusing. It's actually the final steps that help to protect, pay for, and make sure that the transaction is bulletproof and you're ready to take ownership of the home and you're ready to transfer ownership of the home. Now, as always, I'm your favorite Georgia realtor. This has been another episode of Real Talk Real Estate. If you have any additional questions in reference to real estate or would like to receive a free buyer or a seller's guide, you know what to do. You can give me a call at 912-574-1122, or you can send me a message above and I'll make sure that I'll take good care of you. Again, I'm LaTanya Stanley, your favorite Georgia realtor. Thank you for joining Real Talk Real Estate, where we look to make sure to guide you home.